Alright everyone, it's time for the Occult video number 356, Phone Calls from the Dead. This is something that's been spoken of quite a bit within like the supernatural paranormal groups within the world. The idea is that, someone dies and then you receive a phone call at midnight, and it's usually in the middle of the night, by the way, that it happens. I think that that's not a coincidence. I'll get into my skepticism here in a moment. And it's their loved one telling them something mysterious that has some sort of future meaning. Basically, their dead loved one has come back like a Force ghost in Star Wars and is warning them cryptically, always cryptically, of course, never literally, about, don't take your car out on the 7th. Then they find out that they might have been in an automotive collision on the 7th if, they had been in that specific intersection at exactly the time they're normally there. And then they're like, oh, great-grandma just saved my life from heaven and stuff like that. The problem is manifold here. A proper view of spirits in the general modern sense, as most of these paranormal groups even deem them, is as an energy remnant. So it's not really an intelligent thing. Secondly, it's not entirely clear by what methodology phone lines would be affected. It's interesting. These are very interesting creatures, these ghosts or remnant energies, because phone calls from the dead used to happen over landlines, a physical wire and so forth, but now they've adapted. See, the technology has changed entirely, but the phone calls keep being made. Now they know how to use cell phones. They know how to use smartphones. I'm surprised that ghosts haven't figured out how to use WhatsApp and Twitter and things like that. Imagine all of the dead people and they could spend the rest of eternity shitposting on 4chan. The fact is that in most of these cases, there's no corroboration that a call of any kind was actually made. In other cases, you end up with a glitch. Let's say that someone, for instance, they die, and then a phone call goes out from their phone. It is not even entirely beyond the realm of possibility if that phone's just sitting there in a trunk somewhere that a rat didn't make contact with it and cause it to call. And then the person gets a garbled message from, their dead girlfriend 3 days after she's been buried and they're all spooked out. While there's a feasibility for those events even happening, there's no corroboration of these events. That is that the anecdotal tales that you get regarding this most often originate on the internet. So it's someone on the internet says, back in '76, my mom told me that this had happened. Her husband had died, she's screwing around with other men, and then she gets a warning from her dead husband about the dude she's currently boffing on the side while cheating on several other people. And so she left him, and then it turned out that the person was actually Ted Bundy, something like that. Hyperbolic, but I see stories like this. It's basically just creepypasta. The problem is, when you cannot establish the origins of these claims, most often you can't. Wouldn't it pay to be skeptical? You go on the paranormal page on 4chan, you go on X, and you see some story about, hey, there was once this woman named Dahlia Doe or something, and here's her story, and then you have potentially faked newspaper headlines, crudely and poorly clipped out and stuff like that. It's entertainment. It's basically a form of entertainment. By the way, this fills the same niche role that people sitting around the campfire and talking about hoop snakes and chupacabras used to fill. Or even like television shows and stuff. Now it's more interactive. People can make up their own stories. What I would say about this and similar, basically creepypasta things, is that it's good. I don't see it as a negative thing. Even if people are believing in stories literally that are clearly not true, it helps with creative writing, the people that are engaging in it. It entertains people. People get bored very easily in the internet of everything because there's an information overload. These are good things. They're not bad things. What I would say is that it remains good to have a healthy skepticism about things that if you really think about them with any critical thinking at all, some common sense, you'll understand why there's no reason to believe in them. Again, much like with the cryptids of yesteryear, as the great forests of the Americas were falling, they were supposedly full of all sorts of bizarre things. Looking through those forests and having developed most of that land at this point, really there are only a few marginal areas in which some unexplained creature can still exist. For instance, I happen to believe in the plausibility of Bigfoot, although I don't believe that it's an intelligent creature if it does exist. But there is a little bit of bias, because the area that's generally associated, at least originally, with these tales is rather mountainous, rather remote, sparsely populated, and hasn't seen an axe in a while. Well, the plausibility's there, but only because it's so remote, really. Deep oceans. We know that there are actually giant squid. Yes, there are sharks that are gigantic. Yes, there are all sorts of weird creatures, especially in the sea. It's probably life floating around in space, even around the planet. Could have shot off from this planet because an asteroid hit, and then it started evolving in the upper cloud layers, and then there's space aliens. They just happen to be initially from our own planet or something. Maybe it'll cause a great plague someday. But the phone calls from the dead thing, if you watch, like when I'm a kid, it's all landlines. Cell phones exist, but nobody really uses them. And you see, like, In Search Of or something, and the tale is, hey, the landline started getting fuzzy, and then my dead aunt called me and warned me about something, or told me I'll do fine, or, gave me some sort of help or closure, or said something cryptic and religious. That's the other thing that sometimes happens. But then technology evolved, and somehow these spirits are still capable of using that technology. Now, if they're capable of interfering with Wi-Fi or with phone networks that are satellite-based, why do they never fiddle around with the satellites in any other meaningful manner? Why can't they influence television broadcasts? It's going through communication satellites. It's the same basic premise. Why are we not seeing ghosts wander across the screen on the on-demand program? It's no different. Why aren't they playing video games? We're not seeing ghost characters wandering around in Minecraft or anything like that. But they should be capable of doing so if they figured out how to use smartphones. Again, a little bit of common sense, it goes a long way. When we're making the argument of technology being utilized by spirits or by remnant energies, I do believe in remnant energies that people would deem ghosts or spirits. I just don't think they're intelligent. There's no evidence for most of these stories even being based on a principal anecdote that's real. In some cases, it's second or third hand reporting. That's about all. Peace out.